probably walking away from Amazon, which was really tough to say, hey, we just spent the last 3-4 years building this thing up from really small, and now we're going to go cut it in half again. And so I kind of led, I don't know what the number is at this point, but probably 20, 30 acquisitions over about 5 years, ranging in size from probably $5 million to some hundreds of millions of dollars. We're bumps along the way, but we're really proud. And we all show up every day in the office going, we know we've got a good mousetrap here. Let's just go do more of it.
Yeah.
So I just said, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, I got to fix it. They didn't deliver. I said, why do we exist? This is Michael Kraus, CEO of Expak Logistics, and you're watching the Last to First podcast.
All right, check this out. If you're in the last mile delivery industry, we have created something that's just for you. We've called it the Last to First Huddle, or the L2F Huddle. We can come into an ecosystem or community built for the last mile by the last mile. Now, you'll be able to get access to educational courses, right? Playbooks, as I call them. We build playbooks teaching you everything from A to Z in the last mile industry. Everything from how to set your right driver model, to how to navigate misclassification issues, to how to find customers, how to price that work, how to operate it, all the way through to if you want to buy a company, how do you value those businesses. We also have an AI tool called Ask Miles. Miles will answer any how-to question about the industry. I've personally trained it myself. It's pretty damn good. And then also, we're about community. So you're going to access coaches, experts. We have film studies or weekly calls. You'll be able to deep dive into workshops. Look, this is the place to be if you're in the last mile industry. L2Fhuddle.com. I'll see you inside. It's time to huddle up. Let's do it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next episode on the Last to First podcast. You know what it is. We bring you the best, the brightest, and this conversation is going to be one. I'm telling you, I already feel it already. The energy in the room. We've been talking off camera, and it's going to be a great episode. I am joined today with the chairman and CEO of Expak Logistics. We're here in California, Michael Kraus. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to be here, man. Sunny California. There's a vibe going on here.
It's a beautiful day. 70 degrees and sunny.
I hear it's been raining lately, though.
A lot of rain during the holidays, but, you know, they say we need it. And this time last year wasn't so great, so we'll gladly take the rain.
I went to the Grove last night, and then I went to the Lakers game.
Okay.
Saw the King. They lost by 3 or 4. He had a turnover late in the game, but atmosphere, environment, like, is it's a special time.
Yeah. How did Luka play?
You know, he carried him like midway through the game.
Yeah.
He had a run of maybe like 4 or 5 missed shots. Made some big plays at the end, but he got a little fatigued. So he seemed like it's a lot on him. But they're missing 2 starters too right now. Yeah. They're missing Austin Reeves and I miss
Richie Murray.
Yeah. So you go to a lot of games?
I don't go to too many. That's probably a story for off camera. In my view, I'm a lifelong Lakers fan, but been kind of turned off by the recent Lakers. But I'm backing on my family tickets this year. I'm a little more interested.
Got it. Yeah. All right. So I want to. There's a lot I want to talk about. I've got a note. I got notes all over this little sheet here. Let's just start off with kind of you and your background story. Talk to me and just kind of introduce who you are, kind of how you got into the industry and became the chairman and CEO of Expak.
Great. Sure. I'd be happy to. I'll try to give you a reasonably short version of this story because we'd be here all day. But I grew up here in Los Angeles, went to school back east. During my senior year in college, learned about investment banking, Wall Street. I knew nothing about that growing up here and decided I wanted to move to New York and work on Wall Street. Okay. And long story short, I did do that. Kind of got lucky. I was at the right place at the right time and got hired into a family office out there that was looking to do a bunch of acquisitions around kind of a base investment in a printing company. And so I got in there as the analyst on the team, crunching numbers, doing Excel, M&A type things.
Yeah. What year is this?
This is 1995 or 1996.
Okay.
95, 96.
Got it.
And so I'm in New York and just start working for this guy, figuring out as I go. And we had a small deal team of 4 or 5 people. I was the young kid, and started doing these acquisitions in the kind of broadly printing and marketing services space. Okay. And kind of better to be lucky than good. A couple of guys that I was working for left, and I kind of was the guy standing who all of a sudden was in charge of mergers and acquisitions for this company. And so I kind of led I don't know what the number is at this point, but probably 20, 30 acquisitions over about 5 years, ranging in size from probably $5 million to some hundreds of millions of dollars. Wow. And just was thrown to the wolves and just got extraordinary real life experience. It wasn't just putting pitch decks together, but we were actually executing deals. And then I was witnessing the results of those deals. And when
these like tuck-in deals?
Yeah, a lot of tuck-in acquisitions, seeing how, the management teams would kind of go in, what they would change, what they would operate differently, kind of pick from an all-star team. So maybe buy this business and say, oh, their sales team's really good, so we're going to kind of elevate them within our broader sales organization, but we need to parachute in some operators to kind of fix things or some version of that. Yeah. And so anyway, worked there in a variety of roles. We ended up, I ended up in 2002 going in with kind of the number 2 guy in our firm to go run another business that happened to also be in the print business that was a public company. And so then I became the head of strategy and M&A for a big global public company also in the print space. Was doing transactions also in Europe and Asia, and just got a ton of experience with a little bit more operating experience in that kind of second part of that Wall Street career. And that business, which ultimately became R.R. Donnelley, had a logistics division, and they had previously bought before I got there, a package delivery business. Donnelley, which was the biggest printer of, magazines, catalogs, books, had a huge logistics business in terms of pushing, flat mail into the United States Postal Service. And they bought this package business, which they had this theory that, we're moving trucks that have, very high weight, high dense flats, magazines. You can't fill a 53 footer with those because of the weight. So we can just put parcels on top, which are big volume, lightweight. Synergy. Great. What a great idea.
Drop-off brings peace of mind, convenience, and professionalism to every delivery. We're helping healthcare, retail, and industrial businesses offer a better delivery experience. You can place a delivery online from your computer or phone any time of the day with upfront pricing and to-the-minute arrival times. Real-time tracking allows you to monitor your delivery on a live map throughout the entire process. You'll get automatic confirmations when your order is picked up and delivered. Our couriers are vetted, uniformed, and only drive in marked vehicles, guaranteeing a professional experience every time. You can rest easy knowing that we will represent your brand exactly the way you need us to. We're committed to providing exceptional customer service. That's why our delivery experts are available 24/7 to ensure your business goes uninterrupted. This is same-day delivery made simple. Talk to a same-day delivery expert on dropoff.com or call us today.
Well, it doesn't quite work that way, particularly at the post offices. And so it became a mess. And this was all before I got there. And so I was asked to sell that package business. And so I got familiar with that logistics division, which was, less than 10% of the overall company. And so I kind of thought it was interesting. And now this is probably 2005-ish. And I'm thinking, this logistics business, actually a pretty good business, while the print business was really struggling. Right? There was just a lot of headwind in that print space, and the strategy at the time was to try to buy up everyone in our industry so we controlled the space, and then we could stop downward price pressure from the customers, except there was this little thing called the internet and digital alternatives, which had me thinking, okay, that might work for a year or two maybe, but long term, that wasn't a strategy that I believed in. And so I left in 2007, stayed in the private equity business for a little while, but was really looking for a business that I thought I could build. And I came across Expak in probably around 2011 and thought, hey, logistics, I know a little bit about this. And I kind of, the simple thesis was the internet's not getting rid of trucks and airplanes and boats and trains, and so no matter what this technology is, you still need to pick something up, put in a vehicle, move it, take it out of the vehicle, and deliver it. And so that was kind of the long story short, how I found Expak Logistics and got into that space.
So describe Expak then in terms of size, scale, kind of what it was as an organization, and then now? Kind of go, but and that was
Sure.
2000.
So this was 2012.
12. Okay.
So Expak was a regional kind of white label carrier, next day overnight delivery service to businesses, a B2B delivery business with, I don't know, a dozen or so terminals in the Western United States. And then would subcontract business to third-party agents in the Eastern United States where they didn't have assets.
Okay.
And so, auto parts, the biggest vertical was pharmacies, retail pharmacies. And, I would describe the business as, it had some, top-notch A-list clients, and some very capable operators, but there was no plan. There was no kind of organization. Everyone operated out of their home or local office, and it was kind of wild, wild west. And I just really felt that there was an opportunity, kind of taking what I learned out of that printing space and how to kind of put best practices into running. I thought, oh, wow, if we put some organization here, we don't really need to change anything. Just have some discipline and visibility so everyone knows what they're doing. We're helping each other out. I thought I could really make a difference, but we kind of concluded with the owner of the business then is still my partner now. So we ended up recapping the business together. The deal went through, 3 permutations, but, and we concluded together that, there were just a lot of broken things. And instead of me spending 3 years trying to fix everything, if we just sold off a bunch of pieces, maybe we could start with a smaller business and rebuild it. So that's what we did. So the business was, at the time, $45-50 million top line business. We probably sold 90% of that revenue at the end of the day. Again, it wasn't necessarily the plan, but we basically broke it down to a few $1 million. We did, I think, $3.5 million the first year when I first got in there. By the time we pro forma, by the time everything was gone, and we were essentially then servicing the pharmacies, some auto parts businesses, and a couple other retail type B2B delivery.
Yeah. So I got to dig in here because I think it's an important part of also where you are today. Typically, when you buy something, you don't shed 89% of it away, right? Yeah. that's not knowing the plan going in. What did you see? Like, what did you see? You talking about the organization, but some of these verticals that maybe weren't either as profitable, were they not as profitable, or they had the growth trajectory you wanted. And if you can identify with those ones, you kind of guys you let go of.
It was a combination of things. It wasn't so much that the revenue was a concern. It was some of the underlying assets and operations were a concern. At the time, we had a bunch of independent contractor drivers in California, which has always been an issue and was a particular hotbed issue then. And so there was some concern that we might have a big liability exposure if we kept running those ICs. And so we sold off some of that business with those assets into some competitors who could then either manage that IC problem differently. But what it did, it kind of unlocked this idea of where we are today, which is kind of using third-party agents to manage and so kind of not burdening with that risk and allowing ourselves to essentially be kind of a premium service provider to call it these retailers and other businesses.
Yeah. So you shared with me off camera, so I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I'll bring it up now. There's a lot of Amazon DSP business that was there when you...
Not when we bought it. We got that right very shortly after.
Okay.
So we went in the Amazon business. I was very eager to grow the business quickly. Like you said, it wasn't really the plan to do this, but at that point I was pot committed. Yeah. And I felt that we did have a plan. And so one of the ways we looked to grow, we got into Amazon, and I think quickly grew that to many millions of dollars of revenue by 2017. Okay. But as I told you, that was a kind of an inflection point for us because ultimately we decided then to walk away from that. And I think kind of the lesson there was, growth is good and growth is important, but not just any growth. And I think that was the lesson. Yeah.
So you pivoted to a more asset light model. You kind of mentioned the agent model. So I'll describe, as I asked you earlier, kind of what Expak is today. How does it look differently today in terms of its size, scope, operation, focus from a customer standpoint?
Yeah. So we're from a top line, we're not back to that 50, but we're a good ways there. Certainly from the 3.5 or whatever we started at. So we're back there. We're and we cover the entire United States. Sadly, with the exception of Hawaii, haven't cracked that code yet. Maybe we need to get some boats, but
I'll join you.
but we're in Alaska and I think all 48 contiguous states, and if we're not in all 48, maybe there's one or two. Just today we're not doing it, but we use agents now exclusively around the country. So we'll have a client, they'll come to us, we'll go bring that to an agent partner, and we've probably got a database of 800 or so agents that we've met with, spoken with, looked at a deal together, maybe done business together. We'll have a really good idea what their footprint is, what technology they use, kind of what fits, because not all work is the same. And there's a big difference, even within the retail space, of what might fit a particular agent. So we kind of know if we've got a deal in Alabama for, pallet deliveries, okay, here are the couple guys that we know that we're going to go talk to. And, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I think when I started at Expak and we really pushed in this space, there was a lot of pushback on the sales side. A lot of clients like, oh, you don't have the assets. Oh, well, then you don't control things. We don't feel comfortable with you guys doing this work. That still comes up a little today, but not as much, because we are a managed transportation provider. We are hands-on. We're not just saying, we have a broker's license, but we're not just saying, hey, we got this piece of business from XYZ retailer, go do it. We're going to, skim off the top and pay you guys. We manage all the technology, and that's whether we're doing integrations or if we're using Descartes, which is, quite often the case in the retail space. We've got in-house what I'd say are 2 Descartes super users. But frankly, I think sometimes know more about that technology than Descartes does. And certainly the clients. We've got, and we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, I think a pretty unique mousetrap in terms of how we manage customer service. We've got very knowledgeable and talented operators. So if there's an opportunity, we're going to go on site, we're going to do training, we're going to do a lot of math, a lot of analytics, kind of be telling people, hey, these are larger cartons. You're probably only going to get 20 a pallet. So as you think about routing, it's not going to be 8 stores on a route. It's probably going to be 3, and really try to package opportunities to our vendor partners to make their life easy. Which is a theme with Expak about kind of how we operate.
So thank you for sharing that. A lot there. I want to break down more. So you mentioned your managed service kind of transportation partner. Are you officially structured as a broker or carrier or some mix of the two? As a broker?
Broker. Okay. We used to have both. We used to be a broker and a carrier.
Okay.
Back when we had assets.
Got it.
But now we are a broker.
Okay. And then a lot of folks work with agents, maybe not to the scale that you do, kind of 100% exclusively. One of the challenges that I'm sure you've heard it, I've heard it when I did some similar work too, is how do you manage it, right? How do you manage these relationships, people all over the country? It's really not, this is a very detail-oriented business, right? I mean, no matter how much the technology comes out, like it's still, somebody's got to get the job done at the local level. So you kind of highlighted some of the things you guys do, but maybe go one step deeper into really how do you execute that day in, day out with the growth and volume you see right now? I know we're going to get into more of your focus on the B2B side of what you do, but how do you really pull it off day in, day out?
Well, I'm kind of an OCD guy. My team would probably say that. I'm very detail-oriented, ask a lot of questions, really strive for control the controllables and kind of leave, the troubleshooting to what we can't possibly control with technology or, like the weather or whatever it might be, a truck breakdown. But there are a lot of things we do. It starts with, before we'll show anything to a carrier partner, we're going to do a ton of front-end analytics. We don't just take, if an RFP comes out, or a data set is sent to us, we just don't copy paste forward. That is a pet peeve of mine. I don't want anyone sending an email or sharing anything that they don't understand.
Right.
And we've got a very talented operations team that does, all this work now. I don't want to say I'm not involved, but they
all
do
the analytics.
I'm an Excel geek. From my New York days. So I still handle maybe a little disproportionate amount of that. But they certainly do a lot. And so we do for anything deal we look at, we'll take that whole RFP and we put something together, what we call a one pager, may end up being a little longer than one page. That's just kind of an organized document of, first of all, what is the motivation? What are we solving for here? Because, if we get in the habit of just, oh, you need a price, here's a price, you're not going to win a lot of business. So it's, what are we solving for? Oh, we need, really focus on time deliveries. We need someone who is absolutely a Descartes user, who can, understands how to use that tool or whatever combination of those things. What are the parcel sizes? How is the freight arriving? How does it have to go out? How many scans are we doing, right? Is it just a receive scan, delivery scan? Do we need to do an integrity scan? Whatever it may be. Are we delivering pallets? Do we need to deliver carton level? All those, what the schedule is, the inbound schedule, the delivery schedule. And so we'll package that up in a really simple way to make it easy for our vendor partners. We'll go on site to their facility, how many dock doors they have, depending on the inbound schedule. Do you have room to park trailers, or is it going to be a live unload drop? All those little details matter. And, we'll be there when the freight comes in, probably for that first week, helping sort seg. We put a written SOP together, standard operating procedures for every deal. And we actually do two. We'll do kind of a longer one that's full of pictures. What is the barcode? What does the label look like? Excuse me. What does a pallet look like coming in? What is it? Maybe a pallet need to look like if we're sort segging and delivering pallets. That all of our vendor partners will have to sign, and then we'll do a one-page SOP for the drivers or the warehouse or the warehouse workers. That's probably no more than 5 or 6 bullets.
If you're tired of chasing drivers for proof of deliveries, scanning paperwork at midnight, or dealing with "I never got my package" claims, Different was built to fix that. Digital signatures and photos captured instantly on any device. POD goes straight to your customer once your driver hits complete. No more phone calls, no more scanning, no more dealing with claims 6 months down the road because you couldn't find paperwork. Different was built by operators who ran a courier business for 35 years. They've lived your problems, so they built real solutions. Check out deliverdifferent.com/last to first.
A couple pictures, and it basically says, if you're doing anything that doesn't fit into this box, just call us. We've got people that will tell you what to do. We want to set everyone within our organization. That's not just our employees, but it's our vendor partners, it's our clients, to set them up for success, and try to enable them to make their job easy. And then, we're probably doing what may seem obvious, but we're doing daily, weekly, maybe in a startup, it might be daily. Maybe it'll go to weekly. Ultimately, for most of our carrier partners, we're doing monthly calls, reviewing the analytics, which is a combination of the TMS analytics and then also the CRM we use for customer service, which is a whole kind of other thing we do. And so even if our clients aren't beating us up on things, we're saying, look, we saw that 3 Mondays in a row, this route's running late. Maybe we need to move something off that route. Maybe we have a driver issue, and we're kind of doing that coaching
proactively, and engage on all these details.
And this is something I learned from my Wall Street days. But a lot of people don't want to be tutored, so you find that if we keep showing up to tutor them, more likely than not, they're going to kind of fix these things. So these calls can be 2 minutes instead of 2 hours. And that usually just over the course of a few months naturally takes its course. And again, I think we lift a lot of burden for our carrier partners because we're like a shock absorber. So, we have some clients that are calling and complaining about this and micromanaging, and maybe we'll only take half of that to our carrier because we can manage the rest. And so it usually ends up being a mutually beneficial relationship.
A couple of follow-ups. We move on to the next topic on that. So 800 carrier partners. I love the detail and the thoroughness of it because I've been one of those carriers working with. I think we actually did some work for you guys back when I had my company back in New Orleans. I've certainly talked to a lot of the sales reps at the ECA and network there. But I love that you invest in managing these relationships and really try to give the carrier every advantage, because a lot of, like we talk about on this podcast, a lot to the carriers and try to how to help them create more value for the organization. So that's a big part of it. 2 questions. One, pricing. So when you're going through that RFP process, are you giving guidance on pricing? And if you are, is it based off of some, like, I guess, obviously you have a lot of general knowledge about what's happening around the industry now? And the second part of that is, how do you evaluate a good carrier versus one that you may not want to partner with, may not be ready to partner with you right now?
Yeah, the second one's a really important question. And just to clarify, I should say we've got probably 50 plus or minus active carrier partners and a database of about 800.
Sure.
800 would be tough to manage day out, but it fluctuates from time to time. So, sorry, tell me the first question.
On the pricing side. So just when you're going through the RFP process, are you saying, I'll tell you exactly what I'm asking. I will get these RFPs sometimes, and the ones that I hate to respond to is when they're saying, this is the price.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it type of thing. There's like no room for really any type of dialogue onto if that's a good number or bad number, versus someone saying, hey, here's a range. Here's what we see. You tell me kind of what you think is going to be, and let's talk about it type of, So,
well, this is, it's art and science, right? It's not one or the other. And this is a continuous conversation internally. We try to provide guidance wherever we can. And there's some deals where we've got 7-8 terminals for that client already. So we kind of have a sense of where things need to be. And we're kind of like, look, guys, we think it needs to be at $30 a pallet or $3 a carton. And we don't know that exactly, but we're doing this market where the stores are a little further away. This is a little denser, so you might need to be a little lower. And we'll tell them to our best of ability. The only time we would say you need to be here is if we know for a fact we get there and we win the business. But that's always, it's a delicate balance because, look, you've been in this space. You can't just come in and double everyone else and get the business. Price is your kind of key to the entrance, right? You need to be in that price range. I think once you get in and you prove yourself and you're doing a good job, again, if the going rate's $3, you can't be at $4, but you might be able to be at $3.20 if you're a proven player and they just know, okay, we don't need to worry about Expak. I'd rather pay $3.10, but I know they'll get it done, and this has been a problem market, and I don't want another headache. So it's always a little bit of balance, but we try to provide guidance where we can. And there are just times where you just, hey, it's, timing's a big deal too. Sometimes you've got the capacity where this fits beautifully on our routes, and we can price it aggressively. And other times, you got to run it dedicated because you have no capacity and you got to bring in an extra crew or overtime and you just can't price it as well. So
I want to move on to some of you. I know you kind of focus on B2Bs, a lot of retail, pool distribution type work, try to work with, national, retailers, maybe, some super regional retailers. And you also mentioned that, you've seen how maybe early on they were kind of like, you don't have assets, like, I don't know about you guys, right? To now, and I think now they're shifting towards being much more comfortable with, true managed services partners out there. And you see that even showing up in the likes of like a UPS, right? Yeah. Where there's a lot of conversation happening right now. We know they bought Roadie to kind of manage their gig kind of side. And there's some people saying they may even look at going, away from like a W-2 model now. But I guess where I'm going with the question is, what do you think has really helped those retailers get more comfortable with working with partners like yourself? And then let's start. There's a second part. I tend to ask these 2-part questions. Let me stick with one at a time.
Yeah. No.
Let's check out from one of our partners what's on the radar for 2026. What's up, David? How you doing?
Good to see you, Jason. Happy New Year.
Happy 2026. What's the one thing you're kind of most excited about from a feature standpoint coming up on the roadmap for 26?
We've launched sort of a fully embedded learning management system where contractors that are onboarded can get HIPAA certified, bloodborne pathogen, hazmat, radioactive, bar 3, and that library continues to grow. We are the best option if you're a life science and pharmaceutical delivery company.
What's the one thing you hear from your customers and why they choose ICSAFE?
We've built this by listening to customers, and we help our customers run their 1099 operation just smarter, better, and faster than anyone else. We combine industry-leading speed, but also with uncompromising quality.
What you're most excited about achieving in the upcoming year?
We have a number of new exciting features coming out in 2026. I'm deep in the process of acquiring a company right now that specializes in savings and tax filing for 1099 contractors. We're not resting on our laurels. There's going to be a lot more to come in 2026. That's just one of the few things coming.
That's good. I'm getting too old to handle all of what was part 3 again?
Yeah.
I'll tell a little anecdote from my early days at
Okay.
Expak, which I think helped kind of form kind of culture and kind of mission, how we approach things. But we had a delivery to one of our pharmacy clients. I don't know, let's say it was on a Tuesday, and I got a call from the salesperson saying, hey, store XYZ called. They're really upset. They didn't get their delivery. It's 4:00. And so he sends an email to the customer, copies our subcontractor, and says, hey, customer, our subcontractor, screwed this up.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't deliver it. Guys, figure it out. And I just looked, I think I picked up the phone, called him. He was in my office. And I just said, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, I got to fix it. They didn't deliver. I said, why do we exist? Right? If you're saying you're blaming it on our subcontractor, the customer hired us. They didn't hire the subcontractor. Not to mention you're connecting all of them. Why are we even here? Just let them do it.
Yeah.
When this comes up for renewal, they're just going to go hire those guys. What are you thinking? And then the worst part about it was the next day he called me 24 hours later or so. He's like, hey, I have great news. It's all fixed. I said, oh, what happened? He goes, well, the pharmacy was wrong. They thought their delivery was on Tuesday, but it's actually on Wednesday, so it got delivered normally. I said, this is good news. We don't even know what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, for us, what that made me realize is, look, we get hired for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be absolutely accountable for our subcontractors. And we need to convince our clients that 1 + 1 equals something more than 2, but that doesn't mean they're paying double.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been kind of I'll say the pitch. We're here to solve their problems.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like, look, with us, you get an all-star team. You're going to get people who all day long worry about your deliveries, right? So you guys don't have to, and you can go back to growing your business. And then we've got assets on the ground that trust us. We pay them on time. We don't wait to get paid to pay them. We're paying them on time. We're providing them support. We're trying to get round peg, round hole.
Yep.
And I just think it works. I think it's a process. I think we've been doing this now enough that a lot of these retailers have gotten to know us. And I think once they know us, it goes away.
Yeah.
And we try, to get references wherever we can.
Yeah. Talk to me about we started off talking about your private equity experience. And what I'm keenly interested in learning, because I've talked to a few folks on the podcast who either had direct experience, maybe not like you, where they started off that way, but they were in the industry, then went PE and kind of came back. And quite frankly, they understand how to navigate, how to build businesses, how to execute maybe at a higher capacity, maybe faster, because of that background, because ultimately you have a good sense of how these businesses trade, what's really important when you're looking at an exit. How has your experience as a PE firm helped shape the kind of new direction you've pushed Expak into?
It's interesting. We have no debt on our business, and that's just a data point. But
wow,
I recognize the value of leverage, and that you can accelerate returns with leverage. But we really want to grow. That's I just want to keep building this business. I'm not looking for an exit in the near term.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, again, private equity has many shapes and sizes. And I know a lot of people in the private equity business, many of whom are talented, if not all of them,
Mm-hmm.
but they're different versions. Some are real builders of businesses, others are financial engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way I look at it is, I think private equity money could be very value add if you've got a timeline to an exit
Mm-hmm.
and you want to start that clock. I'm less convinced if you want to be a long-term builder, that's kind of the partner you want, because your interests aren't necessarily aligned. They're
Sure.
looking at, how do I get money out of this thing? And certainly for me at Expak, just be real clear, kind of coming out of the print space and then another private equity experience that kind of wasn't the right culture fit. It was really important to me that we had an environment where a rising tide lifts all ships. If we're doing well, it's not that I'm doing well at the expense of someone else. I want my people to do well. I want our customers to do well.
Mm-hmm.
I want everyone to succeed. So for us, it's about alignment of interests and everyone being on the same page. And I just think when you come with private equity, you just better make sure that you're aligned with what those investors who are ultimately going to control the business most likely, that you guys both want the exact same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting because when you were talking about how your first kind of experience in the company after you acquired it was to sell off a lot of assets and kind of almost start over, right?
Yeah.
And so that shows a level of discipline, a level of patience, a level of, hey, I'm playing a longer game, because that's not the typical playbook you see from a PE approach to it. So it shows that you have a long-term vision, a long-term thinker. And I guess one of the questions I had I was kind of just, preparing for the episode is most times it's hard for a guy to shift from being a non-operator to come into a business like this where it's none but operations. I mean, operations is the thing. It would frustrate me sometimes when I would be in meetings and sales and ops are like going back and forth, who's more important. I'm like, they're like, well, we operate, we do all the dirty work. I'm saying, well, you can't do it if I don't bring it in, right?
Yeah.
So how has that shift been for you, kind of now being in the thick of the mud,
Look, it's been a learning experience, and I think I've had a lot of false starts and made a lot of mistakes. Two things that come to mind. When I came in, I think fixing a lot of the financial elements of the business and good reporting, good cash management, I was probably really good at that. Yeah. On the operating side, probably a couple starts and stops. Early on, Jeff Beck, our CO, we realized the importance of these SOPs and having good documentation. So, everyone knew what was going on. It can't all sit between our ears. And, we were really busy at the time. And I said, let me take a first shot at drafting one of these SOPs for a new opportunity. And so I wrote this thing. I was so proud of it. And I apologize. I think I said the same story in another podcast. So forgive me. Right. And I put it on his desk that night when I leave the office. And the next day he comes into my office. I'm so excited, waiting for him to read it and tell me how great it is. And he comes to my office, maybe that after lunch or something. Yeah. And he takes it. And, he's got it. And he takes it. He throws it in the trash. Jeff, what's up? Yeah. He goes, no one's going to read this. I was like, it has everything. He's like, yeah, but this isn't written for a Wall Street lawyer. We got to write this for a $13 an hour driver warehouse worker. You got to keep it simple. And so that was an amazing lesson for me out of the gate. I think the other one that took me longer to realize is I love being in the room with clients and selling and trying to close a deal. And I really enjoy that and kind of figuring out how to solve their problems. But what I've realized is I'm probably a terrible sales manager and a sales leader. And it took me probably the longest to figure that out. Probably about 18 months ago is when I started to realize, okay, maybe we need to have better process around sales. We put process around operations, proper process around the financial side of things. Yeah. But I didn't have that experience in my private equity days. And so really having to be kind of self-aware and objective about some weaknesses. And so we're investing money right now. We made a lot of changes in the last 18 months in our whole sales process to enable the sales team to be more effective and for me not to get in their way.
Have you leveraged AI in these processes in terms of how to be more efficient and effective?
So we've looked at if we think about those three pillars, sales, ops, and kind of finance accounting, we've looked at AI in all three. Okay. And I'm not, I am not a tech guy. I don't know anything really when it comes to AI. On the ops side, which was the first place we started playing with it, which is probably about 2 years ago, we actually hired a couple guys, spent a bunch of time trying to connect a couple different databases. We have our own internal TMS, and then we have our CRM system for our customer service, which will track, late deliveries or, kind of what's on, kind of issues we have, changes to schedule. It could be anything that, kind of managing to all those exceptions. And months went by and we realized unless we threw a ton of money at it, hired a bunch of engineers, the training that has to go on, the nuance of what we do, we kind of concluded at least then, and maybe I'm not to say we wouldn't revisit this because we definitely don't close doors permanently. But we just didn't think the ROI was there. Where we're using it most now is on probably the sales side and trying to just optimize how we do lead gen, and freeing the sales team up to really focus where they can make an impact. And so we have a long tail of prospective clients and letting AI help us touch those people without taking up half the day. So that's been a big advantage. And then on the financial accounting side, I think our team uses it a little. For one, I like doing the modeling because that's how I learn. And our whole business is predicated on that. We have a bunch of people who are intelligent, paying attention, know the details. And I would never want someone going to a meeting, a client, and someone asks, well, how'd you come up with that? And it was AI that did it. I want them to not only know what the number is, but how we got there.
Yeah. I was reading some of your LinkedIn post I'm assuming you write your LinkedIn post. So I'm going to make that assumption, but maybe
Yes.
But-
Ask the question.
But
But
there was a post that caught my attention because you were talking about from a sales standpoint how you're working on tools, processes, SOPs to help your sales team better connect with your prospects, with your customers, and keeping it simple, right? So kind of going back to what your partner, the CFO, that's the COO, that's
COO,
the file in the trash, which I had the same thing happen to me too. Yeah. Actually, my partner like, who's gonna read all this? It's like a beautiful 5-page document. Like nobody's flipping through 5 pages, but you were saying that you guys are working on better ways to connect with those clients. Not so much give me your tracing on how you're doing that, but more so like the power of connection. Like, and you, I feel your energy. Like you talk about how you like to be in sales rooms and close deals. Like, talk about what you've learned in all your experience and like the how you connect, how you close deals. Like, what does that really mean for you?
Oh, this is, it's funny. I think I'm, got more gray hair than I used to. Once upon a time in New York, I was like the kid on the team, and I'm not that kid anymore, but personal connection, face to face, what we're doing now is a big deal for me. It's great to email. You email me, hey, meet me at 3:30. Here's the address. Great. But if you have some questions about this podcast, you and me going back and forth on email isn't ideal versus a conversation. There's nuance, there's tone. And so I just say I emphasize with the team so much. Email has a place, but meet with people. We get on planes in fact, I'm getting on a plane Tuesday, to go out to the Midwest for a client meeting. They were happy to do a Zoom. Any chance I get to go visit someone face to face and sit in a room and get to know them, get to know the personality, just because I think that body language, there's so many ways you communicate beyond the written word.
Yeah.
It's been a challenge to, I think, a degree, because people just want to send an email and say I'm done, but sending an email isn't closing a deal. And the discovery process within sales is critical. And so, asking, trying to understand why are we seeing this deal? What's going on? Emails back and forth, chances are, as we think about, opportunities we're looking forward to, if we can only communicate via email with a prospective client, that's kind of a red flag for us, that maybe they're just looking at price. And not that we don't look at some of those deals, but we want to bring value. We want to solve problems. That's how you build relationships.
Yeah. It reminds me of personal story here. Like, growing up, my dad was a serial entrepreneur, and we have a parking management business. We manage airport parking facilities around the country. As a child, we had this contract in Houston, and he still has this contract in Houston on our parking side. And every Wednesday morning, there's like a regular, like a weekly team meeting. And my dad would fly from New Orleans to Houston, sometimes come back that same day. And I would always, I remember watching him every morning, like, why is he flying to a 1-hour meeting in Houston? Like, this seems crazy to me, right? You could just, well, I guess it wasn't Zoom back then, but like, but he made a commitment to it. And finally, when I got old enough to ask him, I was like, why are you, what are you doing? He's like, the investment in relationships that I do, like that 1 hour I get in front of someone, that will continue to build way beyond, just kind of the initial sale, right? The initial transaction. And it's how I build these long-term relationships, right? And how you get to know people at a deeper level. We get to go to lunch, learn about their kids, learn about what their interests are, right? We're going to try to go play golf tomorrow, right? Yeah. So we can just get to know you a little better. And I think in a world today where that is somewhat devalued, we got all this artificial, all this automation, all this, connect online. But there's nothing that can replace, honest, impactful, authentic conversations, right? So, I wish more people get back to that. I really do. I think that is really one of the missing keys of success.
Yeah, it's like I said, we are all about getting to understand, because at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, which it inevitably will, you want that relationship so someone will pick up the phone and be straight with you, and tell you what they're thinking. Because, we don't have crystal balls. We can't guess. And if you're not building those relationships, then usually the exchanges are a little more passive aggressive, and they're just not constructive. So it's a big deal.
Segueing into some personal. So we're on the personal segment now. I don't know why, but sometimes we get a vibe. We can go personal. We can go personal. So we were talking off camera about coaching and coaching our kids. And you were saying how you coach your kids and you coach your daughter. I coach my kids in flag football.
Yeah.
And we're joking about how really coaching the girls is so much more rewarding than coaching the boys because they listen, right? And they absorb it and they're like little sponges, and you get to see them kind of progress real quick. Talk about just your experience as a dad, as a father, and like the relationships that you built with your kids, with your kind of loved ones, and how that impacts you from a professional standpoint.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, like to a certain degree, almost everything I do now is for the benefit of the kids. Maybe not directly.
Yeah.
But I've got 3 kids, 2 boys, 19 and 17, a 15-year-old daughter. The coaching experience, which I probably did for 6 years or so between the 3 kids, was maybe one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And it's kind of interesting. My then wife, now ex-wife, almost kind of tricked me into doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I had kind of, talked on the side like, oh, these coaches are coaching my oldest son. I'm like, and he wasn't that great of an athlete. Sorry, Cameron. But I just felt like, look, there's a ways to use everyone on the field, and you got to play to their strengths. And it frustrated me. So one day she's like, oh, by the way, the coach is sick, so tomorrow I volunteered you to coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God,
Mama told you.
Yeah. And I'm very thankful that she did that because, look, I didn't know, kind of like going into this business. I knew a bunch about football, but I never really thought about it as being the coach, and kind of knew nothing. I ended up shadowing one of the other coaches the next season as an assistant on his staff.
Yeah.
And just kind of figured out what I liked, what I didn't like. And then I kind of started head coaching the next season.
Okay.
Kind of doing it my way, kind of taking those pieces and recognizing what I wasn't good at, and then delegating that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think some of these parenting things you do in terms of how you delegate, how you give kids rope. We talk all the time about the kids. You kind of have to let them make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you try to protect them too much, then you're not giving them the ability to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Same with my team, right? You got to go out there. The trick is don't make huge mistakes that we can't recover from, but little mistakes are great because you don't forget those mistakes. We all think about, when I did that thing wrong, I'll never do that again.
Yeah. It's super just dope. And you mentioned like giving a rope, and it's hard because I had a question here about your competitive edge, and kind of, cause I can sense it. I watched some previous podcasts you did, and I see like this guy's got an edge about him. That's why I asked you if you're an athlete, right?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Like, where does that competitive edge to win come from?
I think some of it goes to, I was a late bloomer growing up. So I wasn't a very good athlete at all growing up. And it wasn't until I was around 18 and I'm 5'10", so 172 pounds. So I'm not exactly an athletic build, but it kind of got to the point where I was like, I'd go play football or basketball. I'm like, who cares if I get hit? Like that kind of mindset of just throwing your body out there was something I didn't have because I was so intimidated until I was in college. And that freed me up a bit. And I think one of the biggest things for me was when I learned about this whole Wall Street thing in college and no one would hire me. And I was pissed. I was like, I am good at this. I know what I'm doing. I know I don't have the resume. I didn't, grow up in Connecticut, and no offense to my Connecticut friends, but, and kind of, have the 2 summers of internships. I just didn't know, but I knew I could do it. And so I had a real chip on my shoulder when I moved to New York. I was going to find a job, figure it out, and make it. And so, but there was a lesson there, and just the hard work and persistence. And so I recognize that, and I am, certain that our business will, continue to create value and not only be successful for me, but, for the team, which is really kind of what we want to do. I want to see our whole team succeed here. And you just got to believe it to start, and then just keep going after it. And, we all get knocked down. You just got to keep getting up, and some days are worse than others and some days are better.
We do. Yeah. I was telling you, I'm going to be doing my first kind of leadership speech, and it's obviously on brand with Last to First, but it's kind of about, I think I'm going to nail down this title. I'm still playing with the title right now, but it's called Last is First. And I talk about some moments in my personal life where I was last, and because we're all last at some point, at some place, at some time. And to me, like, if you can dig in there, if you can soak in the lessons when you're sitting in last place, like when they're not hiring you, or when I didn't get the scholarship, I had to walk on that Vandy, and like those moments that you never forget, like they just burn in your mind forever. Man, there's so many nuggets you can learn from those, and those propel you forever. And there's so many leadership principles you can take from those. So it sounds a lot like you.
Yeah, it's not that you don't look at. It's so much easier to look at a loss analytically and think, what could I have done different? I think most of us, when you win, you don't think, oh, what could we have done better? We won, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you don't have that adversity, it's great to be lucky, but preparation makes it easier to be lucky.
Yeah. Speaking of success, you guys had a really good year, 25. Right?
Yep.
Talk about your year, and then I'm interested. You said in your notes you had a quiet peak season.
Yes.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
In our business, when you're not hearing from customers, that's very, very good.
Yeah.
You certainly want them to answer the phone when you call them, but I think I only heard from one client once during peak.
Okay.
And I don't want to say that, we have a history of, my phone ringing off the hook. And some of that, truthfully, is just that our team handles so much. I don't hear things, but I see the customer service tickets. I see what's going on. And, peak's a big deal. Your scorecard really is peak. If you screw up peak,
you're done.
You could, Q1, your stuff's getting RFP'd. And we heard virtually nothing. Not to say there's not a ton of communication. Hey, we need to change this schedule. Can you do this? Can you do that? But we're very proactive. With our clients, back in the summer, we're going, hey, what is your Thanksgiving plan? If we normally deliver on a Thursday, are you shifting that to Friday? Are you canceling it all together? Whatever it is, what's the schedule for the inbounds? Are you still bringing us an inbound on Wednesday night or Thursday night of Thanksgiving? And most clients are responsive, and some clients, in fact, have similar plans. But you'd be surprised that the other clients that just, don't respond to emails or calls on this stuff. And so we did a really great job of keeping that quiet, which was really exciting because we onboarded probably over the summer 6-7 new retailers. Sorry, I said 6-7.
My kids will love it. There you go.
And the team did an amazing job. We got them all on board, and every single one of these, the first couple of weeks, like, oh, you forgot to tell us about this, but we got through it, and to see all, not all of those have the same peak season, but 2 or 3 of them did, and to see that go smooth, and the reward is typically now in Q1. They're like, hey, we got some more business we're going to put out in the market. We'd love you guys to look at it.
Yeah. I want to get your thoughts on the future of last mile, final mile. There's, and I'm asking from the lens of, there's never been, in my opinion, a better time where there's been more volume and growth and opportunities coming into the last mile because of the shifts in the consumer behavior changes, and the retailers having to respond to that, which puts opportunities in front of companies like Expak. On the other side, I often hear some companies are saying, yeah, we get more volume, but the value may not necessarily be following there because either there's margin compression, either there's more capacity in the market and the rates are low. I'm scared to go up on pricing because the guy across the street is going to go down about $1. All these things are constantly happening in the world where there's more and more opportunities happening. Yeah. How do you navigate that? And kind of what do you see as how you look forward to that?
There's so many moving pieces, right? I think everything you touched on, and we don't have a crystal ball. I mean, I think, I don't know. I think we're still social creatures. And again, I'm not saying I'm the example. I recognize there are 8 billion other people in this world. So the fact that I like to go to the grocery store and actually, if I want to buy something, I actually want to touch it on a shelf, doesn't mean everyone else does. But I do believe that by nature, as much as e-commerce and online ordering has a place, I do think that there's proof that there are a ton of retailers where that store experience makes a difference, and a lot of them have shifted to making it more of an experience when you go there. There's some of those that are the treasure hunters where you don't know exactly what's on the shelves, so you want to go there and get a deal. Others that you may want to go buy it there because they'll give you an espresso or a glass of wine or whatever it is they're going to do, or they have games, that your kids get excited about. So I don't believe, that in-store experience is going away. I think that's going to be an opportunity. We definitely have those clients that tell us, oh, if you raise your price, we're shopping it every time. And I just shake my head. And so bottom line for us, I think there's always going to be plenty of opportunity if you provide good service. Because the one thing that that we always try to talk about with customers is change is time consuming. And it can cost money, and mistakes also cost money. How much time do you make, berating your carrier because they're messing up, or having to fix a problem, or then you got to call your line haul carrier because they screwed up, or, now you've got 3 more meetings with store management because they're upset that their deliveries are late. And so our ability to quiet that noise and just do our job, we think is our best defense for a good offense. That as long as we're doing that, the opportunities are out there. We know where they are. And if we do a good job, we're going to get our disproportionate share. And I think particularly in an environment like this, it's a little unpredictable, to say the least.
Yeah.
We found if you go back maybe 3 or so years ago, 3-4 years coming out of COVID, when everything was so hot, we really struggled on the sales side because everyone was doing so much better than they expected that they're like, oh, we're not, we thought we'd be going 3%, we're going 8%, we're not making any changes.
Yeah.
But in an environment like this, where everyone's a little concerned, whether it's tariffs, whether it's just, their, next year's forecast, they're always looking to, if they can quiet the noise and let that supply chain work so they can go sell more things, that's a good opportunity for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, when you look at 26 and ahead, are there any particular areas you want to focus more in from a customer vertical standpoint, or even a geographical standpoint? Are you saying, hey, we want to do a little more in this area of that market?
I think we're relatively geographically agnostic.
Okay.
We certainly know kind of who our partners, our vendor partners, carrier partners are, and kind of what fits with them. So we know that, if it's a Descartes user and this size volume, we kind of know who our best players are. So we might try to sell that. But for us, it's really building relationships with new logos. That is priority number one. That, if we have an existing client, not that we shouldn't, we have no such thing as ABC clients. If they're a client, they're important. And so if we have an existing client, we want to make sure we're nurturing them, taking care of them. Of course, looking for more business. But the key initiative in 26 and to a certain degree it was in 25, new logos. Okay. We need more people to know that Expak can make their life better.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to talk to you about, we're sitting in California, about the legal environment here in California and how that may or may not be impacting kind of how you operate. Obviously, you made some changes in the past to go to more of the 100% agent, kind of asset light model. And I'm not an expert on this, I'm a lawyer, but, I understand California is one of the most litigious environments to operate in. We do have Prop 22 that was passed, but you still have AB 5. Does that play into your operation at all today? Do you still stay aware of it, abreast of it, whether it's locally here with other partners you may use in California, or just even being in the state of California and how you protect yourself?
Absolutely. It's we can't ignore it. It's interesting, and we by nature of our model, we do have a layer of protection, but at the end of the day, if we're in the chain, so if someone's upset, they're going to come after us. I think we solve this by trying to just get it right the first time, and maybe not perfect. If you try to get it perfect, you'll get nothing done. But we try to be just thoughtful. So if we're selling business in California, we probably lean more towards making sure that our agent's going to be using W-2 drivers. Maybe there's some exceptions. It depends kind of how consistent, if it's 5-day-a-week work, for example, versus if it's maybe one day, it's just going to be a piece of a route. Maybe we'll do it, whereas maybe in Texas or Nevada, we don't really worry about that at all. As an example, New York would be another one that's more like California. So we are certainly aware of it. Some customer, and we may just ask the customer, do you care? If you're really, here's the trade-off, what's important to you. But we are aware, and we try to be thoughtful in terms of recognizing what we can ask people to do, versus maybe what we might recommend people do. At the end of the day, it's about on-time deliveries, and that's really where we're going to focus from managing our vendors. Like, guys, this is what it needs to be. We don't so much care how the sausage is made as long as we hit the requirements.
Yeah. I want to wrap up because we're getting good time, and I asked my guests this same question. You probably heard it, your last to first moment, and you've had a number of just things that you've kind of overcome, and successes and pivots in your career from just what I've learned in the hour or so we've been sitting and chatting. What would you, when you point to a look at your kind of L2F, your last to first moment, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I thought about this for a bit because there are a handful that came to my head, but I think the one that stood out was probably walking away from Amazon, which was really tough to say, hey, we just spent the last 3-4 years building this thing up from really small. It's like kind of almost at that point where we're kind of not where we want to be, but back and have some meaningful scale. And now we're going to go cut it in half again. The good news was we weren't giving up much earnings because every time we started making money with Amazon, they would move the goalposts on us. So we weren't giving up a lot of cash flow, but it was a real challenge to say, we thought we just did what we had to do and now we got to start over again. But it was a great decision. It was a decision that involved, Jeff, our COO, Rebecca, our kind of head of finance and accounting, effectively our CFO. So it was kind of a full leadership where it was like, hey, we're going to make a choice. We are going to be a value-added service provider. We are really good at this, managing these vendors, technology, disciplined customer service again, which I guess we never really got into. But again, it's not just that we're nice on the phone, but we actually have tools in place to do that. Let's double down on what we're really good at. And I think it's proven out. I mean, we had COVID in between, a couple other things that happened that kind of were bumps along the way, but we're really proud. And we all show up every day in the office going, we know we've got a good mousetrap here. Let's just go do more of it.
Yeah. When did you make the decision
that was
to depart?
Kind of end of 2017, 2018.
Okay. So 7-8 years later, you've kind of took that pivot and now you've kind of got yourself back on track where it looks like you're going to continue to move ahead in the direction you guys are going in.
Yeah.
And I want to highlight, because it's like I said, second, third time you've done this, right? Like there's like a change agent factor here, right? Do you like that? Is that something you look at and you're like, I see most people get stuck in that. I guess I'm interested in that because most people see something, but it's hard to make that pivot, hard to make the decision. What gives you the gumption to say let's do it?
I think it starts with being maybe brutally honest, and I think we've done a good job culturally of being really good communicators, and I really encourage the team, hey, speak up when you don't like something. If you're pissed at me, come out, talk to me. We can't let this stuff simmer, because a lot of times people are like, I'm just going to shove it up to the rug and just keep doing my job, and then so you end up going down a path that people aren't really feeling good about. Maybe there's some resentment, and it's really hard to build that way. We're not always going to agree.
Yeah.
But I think that culture has allowed us to do that, where just making sure that we're all heading in that same direction with that same goal. And I think, between the way we've kind of we made some changes to how we do incentive compensation, made a couple changes to the organization. Again, me kind of looking at sales going, okay, we can't keep doing it this way. It kind of worked for a while, but as we've grown, you kind of have to reinvent it. Now, hopefully it's not, a giant step back to go forward. It's more like the little pivots to keep going forward, which is kind of how we're looking at it now. But we don't rest on our laurels, and one of our kind of things we say all the time is continuous improvement. So every time we hire someone, we say, look, we're going to show you how we do things, get you into the program, but speak up if you think there's a better way. Sometimes the best ideas, come from the people in the trenches.
Sure. Well, I certainly appreciate you being on the podcast. I think you share a lot of insights. It's been phenomenal to kind of get to know you and hear more about your story. And I think it's a really profound lesson in leadership. One, going from kind of an investor to an operator, and being focused, disciplined, but also smart enough to know what you don't know, and then to make the adjustments to pivot, because we talk about last to first all the time, but there's constantly last to first moments that we're all dealing with, whether it be personal or professional. And I think you just a living testament to kind of how you've navigated that across your career, and obviously seeing the success you've had with Expak is phenomenal. I wish you guys continued success. So grateful to be on a podcast, and we gotta do this again at some point soon.
I truly appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Congrats on everything you're building here. So hopefully we can come back and talk about our successes down the road a couple times.
Let's do it. That's the first. That was Michael Kraus, who is the chairman, CEO of Expak Logistics. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. Plenty of nuggets here, plenty of jewels he dropped for you to pick up. So we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.